The True Horror Behind Japan's Most Cursed Village by Dire Trip.
There's an old village in Japan that's recently garnered a lot of fame as being a cursed village. With a lot of stories surrounding the area, including that of a man who was burned alive by carjackers, it's no wonder why it's gotten this dark reputation.
What an attention-grabbing introduction. I kind
Before
of
we
like
get
it.
started, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Scentbird. Scentbird is a service that I've really come to enjoy. I've been getting their scents every month for a while now. Scentbird is a service that sends you scents like these each month. Scentbird is really changing the game when it comes to how people shop for and discover new fragrances. It's great to give yourself a little bit more individuality and find something that really suits you. Scentbird lets you choose a new designer fragrance to try every month for just $17. You can pick what you want each month as well. They have all sorts of perfumes, colognes, and even a lot of unisex options. You'll get a month's supply of each one, so you can try out a bunch without committing to a huge bottle that could cost from $300 to $500 at the store. You've got famous brands here like Prada, Gucci, Versace, and even a lot of indie labels like Skylar, Heretic, and Confessions of a Rebel. This month I got Fuck Mondays by Confessions of a Rebel, Magnificent Bastard by Grooming Lounge, and Worthy by Mudo. I'm gonna have to say I like Magnificent Bastard the most out of the three. I mean, not only do I like the smell, but I also really appreciate that they named it after me. So why don't you go ahead and try it out and see which ones you're into. So scan my QR code and use DT2 to get 55% off your first month at Scentbird. Using my promo code, it's only a little bit over $7. Give it a look.
So, minute 36 into the video, about, 96 seconds, we covered the quick attention grabber intro. Ad read was about, I think it was like a 7 out of 10. The ad read went on from about 36 seconds or so. So that was about a 60-second ad read, which is par for the course. So soon into the video. I mean, to be fair, I also have bias where this isn't a product that is going to be marketed at me. So, like, understanding that. It was a good ad read. It really was. I liked it. It was consistent. The audio was consistent. The visuals made sense. I just think it was a little long for how early in the video it was, but that's probably the requirement from the advertiser, from the sponsor.
The Inunaki Tunnel, the Inunaki Village. The Inunaki region in the Fukuoka prefecture of Japan is said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire country, with multiple real-life murders, spooky stories, legends, and historical horror taking place there. It's said that you'll hear screaming and howling at all hours of the night throughout the small region. And scariest.
That's not abnormal, though, right? I mean, in terms of screaming and howling, like how much of that can be attributed to, say, squatters, someone that may be homeless, right? How much of that could be people that either don't want to be found or potentially doing illicit activities in said areas, and there's just no one living there to really, kick them out, or there's no law enforcement around. Like, I think that's one of those things that it starts adding to a mythos of an area, starts adding to the tales of a local area, but how much of it could reasonably explain? Don't get me wrong, as somebody that, like, cool, want to believe cryptids, ghosts, spooky stuff, want to believe it. However, how much of this can reasonably and rationally be explained, right? That's where I come from first. Just because I want it to be real doesn't mean I should engage in a confirmation bias and just blow past, things that would come across as, yeah, this is the logical first step.
Of all, the region supposedly exists outside the confines of the law. It's said that this village, during the Edo period of Japan, was officially sealed off from the rest of the country, with the government wanting no part in governing it. Many reasons have been given as to why. You got demonic cults, blood rituals, cannibalism, black magic, you name it. It's been said that after 30 people were slaughtered during one of these rituals, the town was finally sealed off once and for all.
Let's just keep throwing on the pile. Oh my god, it's great because one thing can turn into, there's just a whole bunch of stuff going on there. I love it.
At that point onwards, roads were cut off to the village. A sign reading, "The Constitution of Japan does not apply beyond this point," was even placed at the entrance to the village to warn anyone who might be brave enough to try and venture in.
I can't imagine. Can you imagine if a state did that? Can you imagine if you lived, I don't know, in Austin, Texas, and, like, actually, maybe not. Let's pick a different state right now. Iowa. I don't know what's in Iowa, right? Let's just say was it Des Moines, the capital of Iowa? Let's just say Iowa, or even let's take it away from the capital, some random town in Iowa. Okay, you are random town, 132 in Iowa, and Iowa just said, nah, like we don't recognize this. We don't recognize that this city as or town as belonging to us, right? I passed through some really interesting towns. Whenever I go up to like what is it, Rigby? I pass through some interesting towns up there. Like, and I'm sure it's fine, but like, ooh, there are some towns that I'm just like, I don't want to be here after dark. I'm good, not because of spooky things, but just I don't want to be around these people. But that also can be a harmful stereotype because small towns do not inherently mean crazy Ganado-esque people, right? No, that's a bad stereotype. But yeah. Or can you just imagine if like the US was suddenly just like, yeah, we don't recognize Iowa. I don't know why I'm picking on Iowa in this one. Like, how just insane that is as a concept.
The Inunaki Village came to be during the early Edo period. It's said that even now, persecuted and mistreated peasants choose to live in exile and cut all bonds with society. It's said that the villagers still live there to this day, but after hundreds of years of demonic rituals and constant inbreeding, they've become quite different. If you've got the guts to venture out to this location yourself, it's said that the village is full of traps and insane villagers that will chase you down and kill you with axes and sickles. Not to mention, there's no phone service, so you're not going to be able to call for any help. Given that this area is supposedly outside the reach of the government, the police wouldn't help you anyway. That's why they say that nobody who has found the real mythical village has ever come back alive. The name of the village, Inunaki, can be translated as Howling Dog, which is said to follow an old story from the village. Even now, you can still find dog statues throughout the ruins of Inunaki, connecting to its heritage. That old story goes something like this. A man in the village had a pet dog that would just not stop barking. One day, he lost his mind and killed it. Shortly after that, both that man and his entire family was murdered. Little did the man know, his dog was only trying to warn him of the approaching killers.
What is what's the American version of this? It's the idiom. Is idiom the word? What does idiom mean? The concept of, what is it? Dude and bird? I don't remember what. Someone's going to know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as I tell it. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it. The concept where dude has a bird and he's trying to drink, right? He's in the middle of the desert. He tries to drink from the water, right? The watering hole. And the bird just keeps like, snatching his like kettle away from him. Eventually he just ganks the bird. And then he realizes there was like a snake in the thing. I don't remember what this is in reference to. I can't remember it off the top of my head what it actually is. I feel like that's kind of similar.
A real historical Inunaki village is on the official record, listed as existing from 1691 to 1889.
Makes sense.
The original Inunaki did well for itself. When it was established, the town was known for producing ceramics and manufacturing steel. After that, its coal mines became even more profitable, and a castle called Inunaki Gobekkan was founded in the late 1800s, sparse ruins of which are still visible to this day. Then it merged with the nearby village called Yoshikawa, and over time merged with even more villages to become the modern Miyakawa city, making Miyakawa the true modern state of the village.
Okay.
The original location of the old village itself was completely destroyed when a dam was built on location and...
I'm sorry, does Japan not have a native kanji for dam? Like, that's just da and mu. Dam. Just Inunaki dam. Whoa! It's always weird so I can read a little bit, right? I'm far from fluent, right? If you threw a sentence at me, or if I try to play Pokemon, my Japanese copy right now, Fire Red, like I'm gonna be lost, right? But like I know hiragana, katakana, right? I can make words together. It's kind of like how milk is this weird one, like native word gyunyu, but like they just use miruku, and it confuses me every time I hear it.
Flooded the whole thing, leaving nearly nothing left behind. The original residents are said to have relocated to the nearby Wakita area. Despite these records, many people will say that this isn't the true Inunaki village from history. It's simply the official account made to hide the real truth.
Yes, as with any good cover-up story, any good conspiracy theory.
And some people say that the building of the dam was actually done in order to hide the true history of the village once and for all. Most of the ghost sightings and horror stories surrounding Inunaki actually take place in an old tunnel leading into the village. While the current tunnel was built in 1975 and still sees a lot of daily use, the old tunnel has been completely abandoned. This site is well known enough to birth a horror movie in 2019 called Howling Village, which uses the tunnel for much of its setting, and a horror game called Inunaki Tunnel that same year. The horror of the tunnel isn't just something of legend. This reputation comes from much more real, recent, documented events, the most famous of which being a brutal murder case. December 7th, 1988. A 20-year-old man named Umeyama Koichi was waiting at a stoplight near the Inunaki area, going home from work when he was approached by several young men. The men told him, "We need your car to pick up some girls, so quit acting tough and get out." As anyone would, Umeyama refused to simply hand over his car. So
what's the concept of this? If somebody asks you to comply with something, generally don't comply with that because they could be lying to you and you end up in a situation worse off than if you had initially tried to disengage from the situation. I think. Don't take that as actual life advice, though. Like, every situation is different, especially in a heated, we've rolled for combat situation like this.
The men attacked him, took control of the car, and drove off with him. Driving to a secluded area, they began to beat him once more. Somehow, Umeyama was able to escape and run out into the road. He tried to flag down some passing cars, but nobody would give him the time of day. The group of men were able to find him and capture him once again. They decided to throw him off of the Konda port, but he hung onto the fencing as hard as he could and they couldn't manage to get him to go underwater. While one of the men finally felt some remorse and said that they should just give up on this, the leader of the group disagreed, saying that this man was going to die. They then threw Umeyama into the trunk of his own car and beat him with wrenches, cranks, and any other tools that they could find. They wanted to toss him off of the Rikimaru Dam, but they feared that the body might float up to the water's surface, so they
like, the fact that there's just such an escalation, though. Like, think about that. Like, the fact that there's an escalation. If this man was able to, like, say, what if this man had complied, right? What if this man got out of his car and, like, just gave it to him, right? What if he just passed over his car? There is no guarantee that they wouldn't have done the same thing. Sure, you could argue maybe they just, they got what they wanted and they just ran off, right? But now they have all the power in the situation, and now you are powerless to prevent that exact same scenario from happening.
Decided to burn him. Feeling that burning him would make him impossible to identify, they stopped at a gas station and filled up some plastic bottles with gasoline, saying that their bike had broken down. Then they dragged him out to Old Inunaki Tunnel. They poured the gasoline all over his head. Knowing what was about to happen, Umeyama screamed out in terror. This spooked the men for a brief second, allowing him to run away once more, this time out into the woods.
Dude is hanging up. He's hanging on there. Like, dude is, like, actually main character status. He's got a chonk and health bar.
The men called out to him, saying, "We aren't going to do anything. We're not lying, so just come out." And for some reason, Umeyama believed them and came back out. Then they captured him for the third and final time. They stuffed some clothing in his mouth, tied his hands and feet together, and beat him with rocks. He still didn't die, begging for his life. This was when they poured the remaining gasoline on him and burned him alive. He struggled in pain and still begged for help, but he didn't get any. Somehow, he managed to get up and shamble to the front of the tunnel, but there he collapsed and died.
Wow.
The group of men...
Dude had, like, focus sash on there. Like, good God. Like, that is awful. Like, actually, objectively awful. Also showcasing my point of, like, oh, look, well, what if he, if he complies, he was in the worst situation being captured that third time, right? What if he was able to actually get away? Like, you just don't know. And hindsight is, of course, 2020. You don't also know how you're going to react until you're in a situation like that, which hopefully nobody ever has to be in that situation, right? That's the hope.
Made sure that he was dead and left the scene, heading back to Fukuoka City. There, they went to a bar and bragged to some other men, saying, "We just killed someone, even set him on fire." Umeyama's body was discovered around noon the next day. Although it was hard to be specific given the state of his body, Umeyama's cause of death was determined to have been from the blood loss to his head. Seeing that the men had been bragging all over town, the murderers were captured and arrested shortly after. At their trial in Fukuoka court in March 8th of 1991, the main man, who was only 19 years old at the time of the crime, was handed down a life sentence. He said, "I never intended to actually kill him. This sentence is too harsh," seeking a reduction to his sentence.
Bruh. But you have precedent that you you and people you have associated with are chronic liars, though. Like, you see how that works, right? You don't get to cherry pick that information, right? Especially if it comes out in the trial that, yeah, like, he got away and we said, oh, we wouldn't hurt you, right? And then you lie about that. You see how that's going to blemish that?
However, the judge rejected his appeal and responded with, "The cruelty displayed here is unlike any other seen in similar cases.
Yeah.
The defendant played a central role and so bears a heavy responsibility."
Yeah.
The current rumors about the true Inunaki Village began to appear on the internet in 1999. It was after this that the old Inunaki Tunnel and the ruins of the village became a very popular sightseeing and ghost hunting spot. Online, people in forums spoke of what they knew about the place. November 2nd, 1999.
Oh, this is going to be peak creepypasta status. I'm ready.
I heard from someone that this village is a specially protected area where the police and the state can't intervene. Despite being a very famous area, TV signals stop at the pass.
Because signals can't permeate solid rock? I mean, that could also be a logical explanation for that.
According to one theory, this village was subjected to severe discrimination before the Edo period, and at some point it cut off all contact with the outside world and became self-governing. There is also talk that it harbors some dangerous people, but that's just speculation.
I think something like this appeals to people because how many times have you heard about North Sentinel Island, right? Off the coast of India, right? Just tribe of people that has been left uncontacted. I saw something recently about how an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon came near some loggers or some loggers had sighted them, right? Like, it's that inherent, like, unknown, and I think pop culture media has things to do with it as well because, oh, well, it's so unknown. Are they these absolute heathens that worship some like Cthulhu like entity, and they're just so foreign and different and evil? I think pop culture has something to do with that as well. But just that it's the unknown. Humanity really likes to mess with the unknown. We really have a habit of doing that.
November 6th. When I was in college, I went to Inunaki Pass, and there were both an old and new tunnel on the pass. There was no light, and I felt sick. November 8th. Inunaki Village used to be in that area, but it seems to have been submerged. When I asked a friend about Inunaki Village, he said, "Oh, you mean that submerged village? It must have been filled with water with the construction of the dam." November 9th. I heard that there is a village that is not on the map. A small village that isn't on the map when you come across the narrow road that goes there.
I don't know. That doesn't really strike me as odd, though. Like, how many like small villages or things in the U.S. alone, right, probably aren't on a map? Obviously, Google Maps, right? You could be, Gary, Indiana. You could be Boise, Idaho. You could be Austin, Texas. You could be, I don't know, smaller town, right? But because you have to have legal recognition as a town, right, or as a city, settlement, etc. I mean, what happens if you have, in the middle of the woods, get a bunch of people, right, build their own house, like Unabomber status, right? You just build stuff middle of nowhere. Suddenly you have this commune of several people, several houses, shacks, whatever. Like, I mean, does that classify as a village? Does it not classify as a village? Like, I get in this contextually what we're going for is a city that used to exist that was hypothetically removed from a map and or not acknowledged, right? I understand that. Like, or what if a village in the U.S., like a town used to be a town, but like Centralia, right? But I'm sure Centralia is still on a map, but like Centralia status, right? Maybe it used to be a town, or maybe it used to be an old mining town in some mountain range somewhere, but it's been abandoned for years and it's not on a map, right? Like, correlation is not causation. And because it's not on a map, there could be another reason to explain it.
November 12th. Somehow, in a story similar to this, it seemed that there's an area around Mount Haruna in the Gunma Prefecture, where a manga about runners was based on, where you will crash your car and be killed if you enter. It's said that there is a satanic cult that owns a huge piece of land there, and it's said to be filled with dead bodies.
This would be the Satanic Panic in the US at this time, right? Or was that the 80s? I get my dates mixed up. This was after... Yeah, this had to have been post Aleister Crowley, too. So that was kind of a hot button topic for a while.
November 13th.
At least in the US.
There is a religious facility run by a relatively famous group in that area. Criminal organizations often come and go. Then, an anonymous person sent a letter to a TV station called NTV with the title of, the village in Japan that isn't part of Japan. The writer explained that, while they didn't believe in ghosts, the Inunaki Village area was famous for them. The writer detailed a small path in the woods, very easily overlooked, near the side of the old Inunaki tunnel that grew more and more narrow as the path went on. Upon arriving at the end of the path, you would be greeted with the sign reading, "The Constitution of Japan does not apply beyond this point." Their story went a little like this.
So I guess, and that's the thing, one of the consistent threads has been this sign, right? This thread saying the Constitution of Japan does not apply beyond this point. Like, you would have to cross-reference the posts, the copypastas, creepypastas, alleged first-hand accounts, or second, third-hand accounts, depending on who you heard it from, and see if the wording is similar. Because if the wording is similar, you need to at that point you have to debunk why is the wording similar, or is there variation in the wording? Right? Are the same kana used? Are the same kanji used? Like, does it translate the same? Right? Like. That's one of those that because it is so common in all these, that I think that inherently starts leading credence into it. But it's going back to your source material, going back to your original citations. Like, is this a consistent thing? Yes or no?
In the early 1970s, a young couple was driving along the winding curbs in the mountains near the Inunaki Ridge. Trying to get from Hisayama to Miyakawa, they were left with no choice but to go through a narrow road going up the hills. Just before they came up to the old Inunaki tunnel, their car died and they found themselves stranded back in the days before cell phones were a thing. They noticed that small path near the tunnel, so they left the car where it was and headed out on foot to look for help. After a while, they came across the infamous sign. Confused, feeling it must be a joke, they continued on into the village. Less than a half-mile in, they started seeing small, ancient-looking homes. The houses were dark, worn down, and it seemed the place was abandoned. They didn't hear anyone around, even the sound of animals or even the wind. The only sign of modernity they saw was a white car that had been left to the elements. They remembered the story of a couple in a similar car that had gone missing about a year prior. The couple walked into the main road of the village in the near pitch-black darkness.
That's what starts tipping me off. This is probably creepypasta status, because, I just so happened to remember that there was this couple that went missing a couple of years ago in a car similar to that. I look at my... What do I drive again? Oh my god, I've literally said it on stream. I always forget what I drive. It's not a Honda Accord. Honda Civic, right? I look at a Honda Civic and I can't tell the difference between that and like a Mitsubishi or a Nissan or... I know what a Ford Focus looks like, but you get my point, right? I can't tell the difference. Like Dodge Challenger versus, say, a Hellcat versus cars, man. Cars, they're boxes on wheels to me. Unless you're as weird as like an FJ Cruiser or a Jeep, I especially if you're a sedan, I don't actually know the difference. But that being said, that's just me. That's a subjective thing. Maybe they knew more about cars than I do. Like I can't dismiss that. But that definitely is a running theme in creepypasta, copypasta things where, I remembered hearing a story about a miner that had gone missing here, 20, 30 years ago. And they called him Old Blue because this man was 60s and he had a blue stripe on his helmet, right? Things like that. Like it's alluding to something, an event prior in the story that is now coming to light and potentially foreshadowing what's going to happen.
Feeling sufficiently creeped out, they decided to head back to their car and look for help in another direction. That was when someone suddenly came out and stood on the porch of a big gray building just in front of them. The man walked up to the couple, greeting them, saying that they loved to see visitors here, they just didn't like to see them leave. Then, in one quick motion, he cut the boy all the way from his neck to his navel with a sickle. The boy collapsed on the ground before he even knew what had happened. The girl tried to run back to their car before the man grabbed her. He lifted her up with one hand and threw her into the street, breaking her ribs.
See, that also is another one, just like how superhuman strength, right? Like you run into this, this man that is suddenly there, and he's, has this ungodly speed, and he has this superhuman strength. Absolutely, people can absolutely do that. I'm sure there are a number of U.S. Marines that could, even being 250, one hand, pick me up and throw me, okay? Like, that's not impossible. But, like, that is a common thing that I found into literature, horror stories, fantasy, gaming, what have you, to accentuate the danger that one is in. I mean, the fish always gets bigger. What was it that, they were just frozen in place? If this allegedly happened, or is this just embellishment on these to enhance the story's effect on somebody? These are all things that you have to consider when you look at something like this.
Did what she could to run to the nearest house, seeing something that they hadn't noticed along the way, a bunch of corpses hidden in the shadows between buildings. The woman then met her fate as well, thrown onto the ground next to the white car.
So how do you know about this then? If you have two people going in, right? Two people going in, and it's from the first person perspective, right? But both parties expire? How do you know?
The writer then detailed the insane villagers who lived there and urged reporters to go check out the area as soon as possible. This was the first time the modern legend of the Inunaki Village was born, even though it had been a popular ghost hunting spot even before that. There are a number of legends and stories out there that give their truth behind the history of the village. A few of these rumors go as follows. Number 1. The village was so overtaken by disease that the government cut it off from the rest of society to keep the disease from spreading any further, leaving them all there to die.
I mean, precedent from this, look in the US alone, sanatoriums, right? While, yes, they could be used for mental health issues, right? I mean, what if in, ye olden days, you had an outbreak of polio, or you had an outbreak of tuberculosis, right? You herd all these people, all these infected in a single area to lessen the impact of it, right? To lessen the effect on your healthy population. Is it right? Is it wrong? That's an ethics argument. What I can say is there's precedent for that being a thing that societies have used for hundreds of years.
Number 2. The village was a leper colony, with society no longer wishing to engage with them due to their status.
Yeah.
Number 3. The isolationist views of the villagers eventually led to a drop in intelligence and a rise in inbreeding and degenerate behavior, with simple human norms and morality being long forgotten. 4.
Degenerate behavior? You mean like being VTubers? My God.
4. One resident of the small village, possibly that man with the sickle, killed everyone around him one night, leaving nobody but himself standing. Or we have number 5. A cult took over the village, leading to cannibalistic rituals that doomed anyone from outside the village who managed to wander in. Some of the stories circulate around the building of the Inunaki Dam, which flooded the historical location of the village. It's said that, when agents from the energy companies weren't able to convince the residents to leave, they simply barricaded them into their homes, flooded the area, and erased them from existence.
That sounds like, there were a couple things that happened in, what was it, China? During Mao Zedong's era, no, it wasn't Mao Zedong, was it? Maybe it was. I know that the what's the dam over there? Big China dam, big Chinese dam. That one, when that was constructed, Three Gorges Dam, right? Maybe? No, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, but this has been a practice. Like, hey, we need to build this dam because agriculture and reasons. Nah. We don't want to leave. We're giving you warning to leave. Nah, we don't want to leave. Cool, we're just building the dam, right? And then you flood things. And that's actually how China lost a lot of historical sites. They lost some cities and stuff like that because of, stuff like this, right? Because of modernization. Is it right? Is it wrong? I mean, once again, that becomes an ethics debate, and it becomes a cost-benefit analysis versus modernization and preserving history. Both have a place, and, that can differ between not just countries, that can just differ between regions, right? Idaho, for example, as a state, may have different priorities than a state like Wisconsin, than a state like Tennessee, than a state like West Virginia, right? Makes sense, right?
The old Inunaki Tunnel has since been sealed off from the public, with huge concrete blocks blocking the entrance.
That's a safety
On the road,
thing.
There's now a large gate that prevents cars from coming in, with cliffs on either side. Although difficult, some people have been able to climb around the mountains and squeeze in through the top of the tunnel to get inside. Speaking of
that is classic, you told me I couldn't, now I want to.
All of this, people living in the village have said that ever since the release of the Howling Village movie, this place has gotten even more popular to the public. Before the movie, there were already quite a few people coming along, but in 2020, despite lockdowns, the place was booming in popularity. The whole area, inside and outside the tunnel, is now full of garbage, graffiti, and all manner of possessions left behind by drunken partiers. People living nearby won't go anywhere near the tunnel, not because of the hauntings, but because of the gangs of unruly people coming and going around the area.
Yeah.
One man living nearby told a local paper, "Every day young people hang out in the woods close to the tunnel. They are throwing away their trash where they stand, drinking and making a nuisance. We are scared to even go up there as it stands."
Yeah, don't.
Since the movie premiered, the police have had to come out to the tunnel over 182 times, up from 0 in the several months leading up to it. The locals would prefer the area to be left alone, wishing that the area would lose its appeal as soon as possible. In February of 2020, the Fukuoka Broadcasting Corporation actually did send a group of journalists out to scout the area, working alongside the Miyakawa City Council. They claim to have heard strange noises coming from the inside of the tunnel, noticing a drop in temperature from 12 degrees Celsius down to 9 while nearing the tunnel opening. However, cool air coming
That could be a number of things, though, right? I mean, the tunnel is shaded, is it not? I mean, it could just be that it's just not as warm.
from the inside of a tunnel isn't very surprising.
No.
In the end, they had to conclude that they didn't really find anything. With the area now being gated off, the tunnel being barricaded, the frequent police patrolling, all sorts of security cameras, fences, and gates closing off the area, it's getting harder and harder to see the site. Maybe that's for the best, both for the locals and possibly even for your own safety.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you for watching my video. This is the first time I've actually gone out to a location and filmed footage for the purpose of a video. I
so
actually
cool.
first heard about this location from Wendigoon's Conspiracy Theory Iceberg video, thinking, I'm
Wendigoon!
near that area, how have I never heard about this before? So I decided to go give it a look. So if you found this interesting, please give me a like, it helps out in the algorithm, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Special thanks to Mary Melody on Twitter for making this cool fan art of my channel icon. Always appreciated. Follow me on social media as you want, I post stuff there, and I also have channel memberships open now. If you want to support the channel even further, I also have a Patreon account which I keep linked down in the description below, and speaking of which, shout out to the top patrons. We've got Jake Parsons, Rabid Snarf, Royal Pain and Ass, Kylie, Jada, Dana Hart, Anna B, Sunrider, Gabrielle Tansik, Lee aka Crust, Emilia Morales, George Lopez, Minitina, Ron Murillo, Travis Billings, Jason Whitehurst, Jim Dowell, Kimmy Leffel, Melina Lee Williams-Haas, Impalato, Stephen Jamie Kramer, Max Sword Guy, Hao Yang, April Diamond, Starfade, Elixir, Angie, Rick of Work in Progress USA, Sass Johnson, Marianne McCurdy, Buttery Frankus, Jules Latona, Arctic Cat, Alan Damiani, Adrian Lawley, Marsh, Rinsenstein, Kim Peak, Lex Luthor, Lux Alpaca, CSD, Scoochie Main, Jackie, and Mark Barnett. Thanks again to Scentbird for partnering with me on this video. Check out their links in the description below and scan that QR code. This has been your host Kyle. Thank you, and good night.
I dig it. I liked it. I thought it was a 10 out of 10 video. So hear my reasoning out for this. One, it led with, hey, this is the inciting incident that, kind of sparked a lot of public interest. It went over the history and alleged history of it. It walked through some of the modern implications of this, right, going from past to present. And it also kind of, he came across as incredibly well-read, well-reasoned. Like a lot of just like, yeah, well, this. How do I word this? So I'm getting tongue-tied. It came across as logical if something was just blatantly kind of like, you could probably dismiss that. It seemed like he went with that route. Like, you could probably just dismiss that, like the tunnel thing, right? Not necessarily the oddest thing to have the inside of a tunnel be, colder than the outside of the tunnel, right? Sun, heat, radiation, right? But it was just interesting. I liked it. I thought it was a really good video. It was very well formatted, very well spoken. Audio quality was great. No background noise really overrode it. I liked that there were establishing shots of the actual location rather than just through Google. It seems like he went out there and did that. It adds that little extra step, if that makes sense. So I love this kind of content. I really do. And seeing creators like this, absolutely just awesome. Whether it's something I can just outright dismiss or something that I can kind of explain certain things away from, or whether someone brings it in a format where like I have nothing to really say. Right? This is a kind of format that I love, but horror, spooky content, etc., has a certain niche in the algorithm. Many people, I'm assuming Wendigoon as well, has run into demonetization issues on certain subjects because of certain material that gets presented in these kind of things. But yeah, I kind of want to see what the feedback is on this. If there is a market for spooky in what I do, which there probably isn't. But you know what? I thought it was cool, and I thought this video presented by Dire Trip was just absolutely awesome. So definitely go ahead and check them out if you haven't. In the description down below, as always, I have linked the original channel as well as this original video. And you know, as with any new creator, the moment that I react to them, you know, if they don't think I'm transformative enough, if they don't want reactions done to their content, you know, I'm more than happy to comply with the original creator's wishes. They just need to let me know, hey, you know, what to do, right? So thank you everyone for watching. I do appreciate that. Go check them out. I'll see you in the next one.